Hi, I'm Andy, and this is my lesson on the anatomy of a class in Java. In this lesson, I'll show you what a class is and introduce you to the various parts of a class so you can start making your own classes. Let's get started. Remember, there are two categories of data types in Java. There are primitives like ints and doubles, and then there are classes. At this point, you should be familiar with one very useful class called string. To make a variable of a primitive data type, you just do something like this. This line of code stores the integer 5 in an int variable called num. With classes, things are a bit more complicated. On this line of code, the new keyword creates an instance of the string class, also called a string object, and then returns the address of that newly created object. This assignment operator captures that address and stores it in this string reference variable called firstName. This arrow here indicates that firstName holds the address of, or refers to, this string object. As you can see here, Java comes with many other classes you can use to build your programs. And not only can you use all these built-in classes, you can actually design your very own classes and then incorporate those into your programs. Writing programs by creating your own classes and combining them with some of Java's built-in classes is called object-oriented programming. This type of programming involves thinking about what objects need to interact while the program is running and then building the classes for those objects. For example, if you were creating a drawing program, you would probably want to allow the user to draw rectangles. To allow the creation of rectangle objects, you would want to make a rectangle class for your program. Let's go ahead and do that. The first thing you need to do to make a class is to create a new file with this format. So let's make a rectangle.java file. On the first line here, we need to put the keyword public, and then class, and then the name of the class followed by curly braces. We're using the keyword public here because we want this class to be accessible to anyone. That means any program that includes this file can make rectangle objects. At this point, you should have a pretty good sense for what a class is. Basically, it's like a blueprint for a building. A blueprint defines the features of the building and allows builders to create actual physical buildings. A class is a blueprint for objects. Our rectangle class will serve as the blueprint for rectangle objects. It will define the features of rectangle objects and allow programmers to build as many rectangle objects as they wish. Classes generally consist of three sections. At the top here, we put instance variables, which are the bits of data that will distinguish one object of this class from another. In Java's string class, my guess is that there's just one instance variable, the group of characters that make up the string's text. For our rectangle class, we'll have several instance variables, the rectangle's length, its width, and maybe a few more. We also put our class variables and constants up here. Those hold values that pertain to the class as a whole and don't vary among the objects of the class. For example, our rectangle class will have a constant called default size that indicates the default length and width of all rectangle objects. After the variables and constants, we put our constructors, which are blocks of code that create or construct the actual objects by initializing the instance variables. In Java's string class, the constructor is what takes these characters right here and stores them as the string object's data. In our rectangle class, the constructor will set all the instance variables, like length and width, to their correct values. In the last section, we put our methods, which are the commands we can send to objects of this class. These commands can either be an action we want the object to take or a request for information about the object. In the string class, we have methods like substring, length, and index of that allow us to request information from a particular string object. In the rectangle class, we'll have methods like getArea and getPerimeter to obtain information from rectangle objects. We'll also have methods like scale and resize that tell a rectangle object to change its size. So that wraps up this lesson on the basic anatomy of classes in Java. In the next few lessons, we'll fill in all these sections of the rectangle class, and I'll show you how to make rectangle objects in your programs. I'm Andy. Thanks for watching and coding with me today.